The first time I saw it, my jaw nearly hit the ground. Overnight, or at least, it felt that way. Karen had erected a massive wooden fence along what she claimed was her property line. The thing wasn't just ugly, it was colossal, blocking the sunlight from half my backyard and slicing right through the corner where my prized vegetable garden had been, flourishing for years. And the kicker? It wasn't even on her property. I had stared at that fence for a solid 10 minutes, my brain cycling through disbelief, anger, and sheer determination. There's something about seeing your hard work erased, with a few spikes of wood and a handful of nails that wakes up a side of you didn't know existed. And trust me, Karen had no idea she had just poked the hornet's nest. Now Karen, everybody in the neighborhood knew her as HOA. Karen was the type who treated the Homeowners Association like her personal kingdom. She patrolled the streets like a self-appointed sheriff, filing complaints about lawn heights, mailbox styles, and the precise angle of garden gnomes. But this was different. This was personal. I walked up to the fence, tapping my fingers on the cold, rough planks. It was solid. It was permanent, or so she thought. But while Karen spent her weekends posting petty violation notices, I had a plan brewing. A plan that didn't involve confrontation, lawyers, or endless HOA meetings. I had chickens on my mind. I spent the next few days researching. Not just any chickens, mind you. I wanted a fully functioning backyard chicken coop that could coexist with Karen's overgrown obsession with rules and property. Lines. There were guides, diagrams, and forums filled with people who'd turned fences into functional spaces. The more I read, the more excited I got. The fence, once a symbol of intrusion and annoyance, suddenly became an opportunity to create something new, something that would make me smile every morning while driving. Karen absolutely crazy. By the end of the week, I had blueprints, materials, and even a list of breeds suited for small urban co-ops. The first hammer hit the wood with a satisfying thunk, and I knew it. This wasn't just revenge. This was art, and it was mine. As Karen polished her HOA badge and checked off her imaginary violations, I was ready to turn her fence into the talk of the neighborhood. By the time I was done, it wouldn't just be a fence. It would be a statement. One that clucked, scratched, and laid eggs. The morning I started, I felt like a secret agent on a mission. My toolbox was packed, the wood pre-cut, and my excitement barely contained. Every plank I measured, every nail I hammered, was a small victory, not just over the fence, but over Karen's endless obsession with control. She had thought she could dictate my yard. I was about to turn that assumption upside down. I began by reinforcing the base along the fence line, making sure it was sturdy enough to handle chickens, feeders, and the occasional curious raccoon. I designed the structure with both function and flair. AEI cozy coop with a small nesting area and an outdoor run. While it wasn't massive, it was perfect for my dozen chickens, and most importantly, it fit exactly on the strip of land that Karen had claimed. As I worked, I could hear the distant sound of her voice. Karen had noticed something was happening. From behind her own fence, she peered over, clipboard in hand, eyes narrowing like a hawk. I waved casually, pretending to check my measuring tape. She huffed, muttering about illegal structures and zoning violations. But I just smiled. Every complaint she could file would have to be written around a chicken coop. That's right, legally it was mine now. By the second day, the framework was complete. I added the slanted roof to keep rain out, painted it with cheerful colors that made the whole backyard pop, and installed nesting boxes inside. Each hammer strike felt like poetic justice. I imagined Karen pacing behind her fence, trying to figure out how to turn my new masterpiece into a violation report. Spoiler alert, she couldn't. Then came the fun part, bringing in the chickens. A small flock of Rhode Island Reds, fluffy and curious, stepped into their new home like they owned it, which, in a way, they did. Watching them explore the run, pecking at the ground and chasing each other around, I laughed out loud. The fence that had been a symbol of intrusion had transformed into a hub of life. Chaos and, yes, mild revenge. Word spread quickly. Neighbors who had tolerated Karen's overbearing HOA antics were now secretly cheering me on. Some even came by to admire the coop, complimenting the clever use of the fence and the happy, clucking residents. It was a small victory, but a sweet one. And every day the chickens thrived. So did my sense of satisfaction. By the time Karen realized what I had done, it was too late. Her fence, which she had expected to intimidate, had become a chicken paradise, and she was left standing on the other side, flustered, muttering about next steps, while I poured feed into the coop and smiled. The game had just begun. It didn't take long for Karen to realize that her fence had been completely co-opted. The first time she stomped over, waving her clipboard like a sword. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Those chickens shouldn't be here," she barked, glaring over the fence like a storm cloud ready to strike. "This is an illegal structure." I leaned casually against the coop, brushing straw from my hands, and smiled. "Oh, it's legal," I said. "It's my property. You just happen to own the fence." Her face contorted in disbelief. The realization hit her slower than a tractor stuck in mud. The fence she had built to assert control now belonged to me, or at least, the space she'd claimed was now mine to use however I wanted. And I had chosen chickens. The next week became a test of wills. Karen attempted to undermine me in every petty way she could imagine. First, she tried filing a formal complaint with the HOA. I responded with blueprints, zoning codes, and a perfectly legal property map. The HOA secretary, who had grown tired of Karen's relentless antics, quietly told her to maybe try baking cookies instead. Then came the inspection. Karen marched over with a tape measure, clearly planning to prove that my co-op violated some imaginary regulation. I watched from inside the coop's tiny door, holding an egg like a trophy. She measured, furrowed her brow, and muttered about lines, corners, and angles. Finally, she gave up, muttering something about next steps. But I knew those steps would lead nowhere. The coop was solid, legal, and full of happy chickens. Karen's frustration was deliciously obvious, but she wasn't one to give up. She attempted small sabotage, placing sticks near the coop, whispering threats, and even trying to lure a curious chicken onto her side of the yard. Every attempt failed spectacularly. The chickens were smarter than she imagined, darting away or ignoring her entirely. And every failure made me grin a little wider. By now, word of the coop had spread across the neighborhood. Kids came by after school, neighbors waved, and even a few HOA board members admitted quietly that Karen had finally gone too far. My little coop had become more than just a chicken home. It was a symbol that a little creativity, patience, and a sense of humor could turn an intrusive fence into something unexpectedly brilliant. And Karen? She was left pacing, flustered, and increasingly desperate, while I collected eggs, fed the chickens, and plotted my next move. The fence had started as an act of aggression, but now it was my canvas, and the masterpiece was just beginning. Karen had finally reached her breaking point. She had tried complaints, inspections, subtle sabotage, and even passive-aggressive notes tucked under my mailbox. Nothing worked. The fence, her fence, was now a thriving chicken paradise, and every attempt to reclaim control had backfired spectacularly. The day she decided to take matters into her own hands, I knew it was going to be dramatic. I was filling water, troughs for the chickens, when I noticed her striding across the yard, determination radiating from her like a fire. She had a plan. I could tell, a final solution to end the co-op once and for all. Karen approached the fence, with the kind of confidence that only someone, convinced they are absolutely right, could muster. "This ends today," she muttered under her breath. I leaned on the coop doorway, watching as she pulled out a tape measure, a notebook, and something that looked suspiciously like a small garden hoe. Her first move was subtle. She tried to dig along the base, hoping to destabilize the structure. That lasted about 30 seconds before the chickens noticed. Rhode Island Reds don't take kindly to intruders, and suddenly Karen found herself surrounded by clucking, flapping, mildly offended chickens. She waved her arms, yelled, and jumped back in pure panic as the flock descended, flapping and pecking in coordinated chaos. It was beautiful, pure poetic justice. The neighbors, who had gathered quietly to watch, couldn't stop laughing. A woman who had built a fence to assert dominance was now running from a dozen angry, feathered defenders. The Coop, meanwhile, stood firm, unscathed and smugly triumphant. Karen retreated, red-faced and muttering about legal ramifications and next steps. But everyone knew there were no steps left. The chickens had won. The fence was no longer a symbol of her control. It was my masterpiece, complete with pecking, clucking life. Even the HOA quietly decided that intervening would only make things worse. From that day forward, the fence became a neighborhood legend. People stopped by just to see the Karen-proof chicken coop. I collected eggs every morning with a grin, watched the chickens roam freely, and occasionally waved to Karen across the property line, her fury now a running joke among neighbors. What had started as a petty invasion had turned into a creative triumph, teaching everyone, including Karen, a valuable lesson. Sometimes the best revenge isn't anger, it's ingenuity. And so the fence, once a symbol of irritation, became a symbol of victory. The coop thrived, the chickens ruled, and HOA Karen. You took it for use. Well, she had to find a new hobby. Meanwhile, I enjoyed every egg, every cluck, and every satisfied smile, knowing that turning a problem into a solution had never been so fun or so effective. The moral was clear. When life gives you a fence, make a chicken coop and watch the chaos turn into triumph. If you enjoyed seeing how I turned Karen's fence into a chicken paradise, make sure to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more wild HOA stories. And let me know in the comments, what would you do if your neighbor pulled a stunt like this? I read every single comment, so drop your thoughts below.